Ross Clark, who joins us. A very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Now, this time, instead of net zero or many other topics I've talked to you about, I want to talk to you about COVID. It's a long time ago now. I think a lot of people like to just wipe those mad years from existence, but we can't do that because A, we've got an ongoing COVID inquiry, B, pretty much every problem we've got in society right now is a result of policies during COVID, and C, they'll probably lock us down again if we don't prove how mad it was in the first place. Now, this is a problem because today we've got a report out today from the COVID inquiry from Baroness Hallett, who's chairing that inquiry, into the government's response to COVID. And my guess is it's going to say, oh, we should have locked down sooner. What are you expecting?
Exactly that, Julia. And I think when this report drops, it's going to become even more obvious what a mistake it was to put this inquiry in the hands of the lawyers rather than the hands of scientists and people who should have been looking into this, because the lawyers have interpreted their role as a sort of show trial of the government of the day. And they've become preoccupied with the issue of the processes of decision-making in Downing Street and Whitehall.
And who wrote what nasty WhatsApp about someone else?
Yes, yeah, exactly, that sort of thing. We've learnt loads about that, and not the least bit interest in perhaps the single most important issue is, where did this virus come from? When Michael Gove raised that issue in the inquiry, if you remember, he was just shut down by the KC. I don't want to get into that. He said, well, you know,
where did it come from?
Are you interested in that?
But also the basic science, we were constantly told we were following the science, cap T, cap S, copyright, you know, and it wasn't. There's no such thing as the science on any topic whatsoever, but least of all, a new virus and how to handle it. We did, however, have pre-pandemic planning, and everyone thinks that Sweden went out on a limb and did a wild, wacky experiment that a lot of people think didn't pay off. And of course, those people haven't bothered looking at the stats, which show absolutely categorically, without a shadow of a doubt, that Sweden did better than anyone else because they didn't lock down. But crucially, they were following the pre-pandemic planning that the World Health Organization had signed off on, that our own government had done and had signed off on. And we, like many other countries, our governments, our politicians, pushed on by the media and social media bots, just completely panicked, went, and did the exact opposite of what we'd always planned to do in the event of a pandemic. And for some reason, people think that the problem is that we didn't panic and do it sooner, rather than we shouldn't have done it at all.
Yeah, well, there was a carefully laid pandemic plan, which had been worked out over a number of years, which was that you didn't close down society totally, because it would be futile to do that. What you had to do, you had to manage things so that, except the infection was going to go through the population, but manage it in such a way that there weren't going to be huge spikes of infections at any one time, which would overload the NHS. So squash the sombrero, as you remember. Yeah. Boris Johnson put it when he showed us that graph of how the government was going to manage it.
And this is what the likes of Chris Whitty was saying only 2 weeks before we actually went into full lockdown.
Yeah, well, on the Thursday, 12th of March 2020, was the first of the Downing Street press conferences, and it was absolutely clear from that conference what the strategy was. And, you know, I said it was the squash the sombrero strategy, try to prevent the, spikes overwhelming the NHS. And not just Chris Whitty, but also Patrick Vallance, who's now a government science minister, Labour science minister, made absolutely that point. Now, over the following weekend, we know there was a panic, and Whitehall, the government, they did this about turn, and suddenly they decided that we were going to have to lock down.
Yeah. Well, Neil Ferguson from Imperial College presented some numbers to Dominic Cummings, who lost his mind and decided that 500,000 people were going to die of COVID if we didn't lock down, and suddenly we locked down. But you, like me, I'm guessing, thought, well, these people have been very sensible up to this point, and if Whitty and Vallance, who are eminent in their fields, if they think that we do now need to lock down, there must be new information that we weren't aware of. But there wasn't.
Well, the only new information there was, as you say, this Imperial College study, which
Was utter nonsense.
predicted that 500,000 people could die if nothing was done. It predicted 250 million people, 250,000 people would die if there was minimal intervention by the government. And their modelling said that, introduced all these social distancing, a number of other, actually short of lockdown. The Imperial College never modelled a full lockdown, but they said all these other social distancing measures, we could reduce the death toll to about 20,000.
Yeah.
And that was totally, totally offbeat. We, in the end, we, a lot more deaths than that. The infection went through the population. Whether we could have avoided more deaths by having an earlier lockdown, I doubt it. If we could have, this was going to go through the population.
Yeah, I mean, that's
anyway,
it. And
a certain number of people were going to die. And as you say, Sweden, which took a different view, they actually fared better than Britain did and most other countries.
Yeah, but the thing is they had higher COVID deaths in the first year. But again, some people were kept alive longer. But again, this idea that the whole population was at risk, including young children, they kept their schools open under the age of 16. No one missed a day of school. We, apart from Italy, had the most school closures, apart from like lunatics in California and America. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, the schools were basically closed for about 2 years. But even the wearing of the masks, don't wear the mask, they don't work. Oh, no, you've got to wear a mask, legally required to wear a mask. I mean, and we know from a lot of those WhatsApps from Matt Hancock that were leaked and that Isabel Oakeshott brilliantly exposed to the world, that actually most of the policy was made on a complete whim, no science behind it whatsoever. It was all politicking, a lot of it goaded on by the media, who still, by the way, have not faced their reckoning. But I know you were a solid voice on this. Again, I was fooled in the early weeks. Thank God I was persuaded by some very sensible people to see sense in it. And I doubt, though, we're going to get much sense from that report. Ross Clark, brilliant to have you on the show, columnist at The Sun. Thank you for that. Philip Ingram.